So today we're going to talk about this aspect of universal mind, this aspect of God, and what it does. So I'm going to take us back to the beginning to bring us just a quick recap of where we are. We talked about what God is, and we determined that no matter what faith, what spirituality we come from, even philosophers talk about there's an infinite presence, an infinite power, an infinite beingness that exists everywhere. They call it consciousness, they call it divine mind, they call it Christ, they call it Buddha, they call it by a myriad of names. But any name that you give this idea of infinite limits it immediately. You cannot label something without defining it, and something that is infinite cannot be defined. The second a name is put on it becomes that. That's why in the Jewish faith they use the term Yahweh with no vowels, because it meant that it was incomplete. It could not be described with words that are known to us today. We looked at this idea of what do we study? What type of belief or philosophy are we? And there's so many. There's materialism. There's all of these theistic. There's all of these philosophies. And the best that I can come up with is that we are panentheists. So when I say the term a panentheist, I mean that we believe that this universal product or process or aspect that we call God is not only all that we see, all that exists. It is not just the seen, but it is the unseen as well. You see, God is not just what's out there. God is so much more. And take the name God and use whatever words you want on it. Don't have to define ourselves with that. When I first got into this idea of spirituality, I could not use the word God because I was rebelling against my Catholicism. And so I couldn't use God. I couldn't use the word Jesus. I had to come up with my own understanding, my own idea, and I would use the term spirit or infinite mind. And as I got more involved, as I understood what it meant for me, now I can use the word God, and it has a different meaning than what is being said out in society. So you have to understand that whatever this word is, you've got to determine what that meaning is for you. And so if I say a word that may not appear to fit what you want, say, wait a second, maybe he's seeing it at a different level. So always think about it from that standpoint. So there's no way to define God. God is infinite. So then we talked about the way it works. Last week we talked about this aspect that if you go to all types of spiritual paths, they talk about the Word was made flesh. The Word was light and light was created. In other words, there is a creative process that exists at the infinite level, at the divine level, that when the Word is spoken, when a thought is received, there's an aspect of God that just creates it. Without judgment, it just creates it. It is neutral. It is impersonal. We talked about that. We are individualizations of the universal mind. Because if God is infinite, that means there's nothing other than God. There can be nothing other than God. There can be no devil. There can be no place outside of God. Everything is at one. If that's true, then everyone is an expression of it. Each of us is that point of consciousness that is creating our lives based on what? Based on what we think. And we came to the understanding is, are we creating all the hell in our lives? Are we creating all the pain, all the sickness, all the worry? And we came to understand the idea that most of what we believe is unconscious. They are thoughts that have been fed to us by our parents, by our family structure, by society, by our school system, by the media. And all of that has fed our consciousness, and we're not even aware of that aspect. And then what we are aware of consciously, that tends to be what we really like about our lives, but all this other, we just haven't realized that we can change that unconscious part of ourselves. We talked about that, and we'll go into that deeper at another time. And so today we're going to talk about what does this power we call God do? Its basic purpose is one thing and one thing only. It's to create. That is all it does. It is constantly creating, because go back to the original point. God is infinite. If God is infinite, God is always becoming more. It is always finding a new way to express and to experience life. And in that new idea of expressing and experiencing, it has to create more. That's why this idea in society today, well, let's go back to the 1950s when everything was just so the cleavers. Leave It to Beaver, the Cleaver family. They all lived in this beautiful home. They had their 2 children. They had this American dream. And all of this, when everything was perfect and there was no controversy, there was always controversy. There was always yearnings to be more. We just only remember an aspect of that. And the fact of the matter is you can't go back. So I find it fascinating that in our system we have the liberals and we have the conservatives, okay? And we have the conservatives that want things to remain constant or go backwards, and that's impossible. By our very nature, we cannot go backwards. By our nature, we always have to grow and become more. The liberals tend to not really be liberals anymore. If you look at the definitions of the parties that we have in the United States, they've almost like reversed roles in the last 20 years from where they were. So you really have to come and understand that in society, most people are followers. Most people do not think for themselves. They blindly accept what is fed to them and they don't think. And if you come to Agape, I'm just going to share with you really quickly. I stand up here and I will speak with authority. I will speak what I believe to be truth. And I share with you openly and honestly, do not believe what I tell you. Do not believe a word I tell you. You think about it for yourself. You test it for yourself until you decide what works for you. When I started in this idea of new thought, which is what we are, and new thought simply meaning that our lives will shift when we start thinking a new way, I tested everything. I never believed my teachers. I never believed them. I am a critical thinker. I test things for myself. If I haven't proven it to me, I'm not going to talk to you about it. And let me tell you, there are things I want to talk to you about, but I haven't proven them to me yet. So I can't stand up here and give you a message on something I haven't proven for myself. Because I believe that that's a matter of being in integrity. And I think integrity is something that's critical, because when we are in integrity with ourselves, we are being our authentic selves, and we're authentic, we have no pain. We live in a state of joy. When we are not living in a state of joy, it means that we are not being authentic with ourselves. We're not expressing ourselves as we are. And as such, we don't understand what this power does, and that is it creates. It's constantly creating. And so, here's the thing about this power. It is unchangeable. Gravity exists. You cannot change gravity, but you can work with it when you understand it. So we have a creative power, and when we understand it, we can work with it. If we think that we can go and say, now I lay me down to sleep and tomorrow, please God, give me $1 million, that ain't going to happen. Because there's no power out there that's going to give that to you. Because that would mean there's a power that's separate from us. There can't be anything separate from us because it's an infinite power, meaning it's all it. And if it's all it, then it is given everything that we desire right where we are right now. It's all within us. But we have to use that power. We have to claim that power. And so it's up to us to form a conscious recognition that the power exists within us, and then begin to use that power consciously and deliberately by choosing the focus of our ideas and our thoughts. This life can only give us as much as we can believe we can have. This life can only give us as much as we believe we can have. If you can't believe something, you're not going to experience it. If you can't believe you're going to have a great job, you're not going to have a great job. If you can't believe you're going to have perfect health or have a perfect weight or have a perfect partner or whatever it is, it's not going to come to you. You see, let's break it down energetically. Energy has a vibration. And when energy is vibrating the same, it comes together with like energy. So if you are going out and you're going to start dating, okay? You, Judith, you're going to start dating. Okay, you're a beautiful woman. I don't see any reason why you can't attract it. Attract it. You notice I called men it? Why would I do that? Well, we are it because the thing itself, the it in it refers to God. Because God has no sex. God is not a he, God is not a she. God is an it because it has everything in it. Here's the interesting thing. We have everything in us. We have both the masculine side and the feminine side. The masculine side representing the intellectual, the feminine side representing the feeling nature. And when we align the feminine, the masculine, the intellectual, and the feeling, and it comes together, we live in a state of perfect harmony and perfect bliss. So as Judith goes out into the world, she is radiating an energy that is the sum total of all of her thoughts, all of her being. And when she goes out, the only thing that's going to come into her experience will be that is a vibrational match to her. Because anything that's not a vibrational match is going to move away. It's not going to enter into her life for long. So I actually use this in my marriage all the time. There are times when my wife will come home from work and I'll feel an energy mismatch and I'll say, I'll see you later. I'm going down into my office. And I go into my office and I continue doing my stuff and I come back and I'll see if the energy has shifted a bit. And if the energy shifted, then we can come together and talk. But if we're in opposite energies, the only thing that can possibly happen at that point is not pretty. Can I share with you? It's not a pretty picture. So why even come together? Why try to resolve something? You cannot resolve something between two people that are vibrating in a different way. You're better off going away, understanding it, and saying, okay, I'm going to shift my vibration. I'm going to become more open. I'm going to breathe. I'm going to slow my mind down. I'm going to come out of my ego. I'm going to breathe into the moment so that I know that the power of creation and what it does, so I'm going to become a more receptive vehicle to it. So our job is to state our consciousness. This is what Ernest Holmes, who wrote The Science of the Mind, says. The more completely we believe that our thoughts have power, the more power they will have. The more completely we believe our thoughts have power, the more power that we have. But if we believe that that person over there has power over us, what is our belief? Our belief that that person has more power. So what are we telling the law? We're telling the law, the creative aspect of God is that person has more power, and that will be our experience. You see, the law that creates is impersonal. It is not going to give you good, it is not going to give you bad. It is going to give you the sum total of what you believe about something. A lot of people believe that relationships are difficult. I believe that relationships are easy. Therefore, I married an easy woman. See? And in that, what's our relationship? Most of the time, we have a very easy relationship because I've come to understand that a relationship has one purpose. It's to support and grow each other. And that'll be talked about on Friday with John DeMartini. He's going to go very much deeply into that idea. But Jean's purpose in my life is to support and grow me. My purpose in Jean's life is to support her and grow her. Now, you can add the caveat to it that it's going to be effortless, easy, and joyful. But if you don't add the specifics to it, the law says, okay, support and grow me. And it could be one whale of a fight. It could be such a contrast that it's not a very pleasant experience. Anyone ever have that? Don't raise your hands. Because that's possible. So we've got this idea, the more completely we believe in the power of thoughts, the greater the power is. So the key then is our mind must conceive. It must conceive an idea before the creative energy can complete it. So we have to conceive the idea that we're seeking to have before it can be expressed. That's where the power of imagination comes in. As we tend to age, we stop imagining that we can have a better life. We stop imagining that we can have more joy. We stop imagining that we can grow and become more. We stop imagining that we can have a body that can do anything. We start accepting what society says, that aging is a process and we must do it. Don't buy into that bunk. Because the second we buy into it, it will become our experience. But we can stop that. The aging process does not have to happen in the mind. If it doesn't happen in the mind, it will slow the body down. The body will perform and function at that youthful level. The second piece is we must provide an avenue through which the power can create as us. This is when we become that vibration. This is when we become what we want to be. So if we want to be wealthy, we've got to act, think, and associate with people who are wealthy. Not by what society's definition of wealth is, by what is your definition of wealth. You see, you've got to get really clear here and not buy into a definition that wealth means this. No, what does wealth mean for you? And as many people as there are in this room, that definition of wealth will vary. And when you become really clear what wealth is to you, then you start to act, think, read, do everything that is perfectly in alignment with that. And when you start acting, thinking, doing, being that person that is living that life now, you're not looking to the future, you're looking into the now. You are now creating your life. And the more you do that, the more you keep feeding that thought, it becomes your underlying belief. And as it becomes your underlying belief, you're acting from it with feeling. You are so emotionally convinced about it that nothing can sway you from that. Then society happens out there. It doesn't impact your experience. You are no longer a victim. If you listen to television, if you listen to the news media, if you read magazines, if you read the newspapers, they want you to have a victim mentality, because when they do, they have power over you. When you claim your power, you are the power in your life. And you are the power also with the people you are with, because a conscious individual is more powerful than a million people that are unconscious. This is the impact that the great avatars in the world have had. Whether you look at Krishna, Jesus, Buddha, name Mother Teresa, name any of the great people, the power that they had to influence others was because they so clearly stood in their light, in their truth, and they did not allow what anyone else said to influence who they were, that they were able to shift consciousness and lift the world. That's the power of an idea. That's the power of the creative process. That's how God creates as itself in the macrocosm and in the microcosm that is us. You see, it's our nature to create. It is the only reason we are here. I found out in the last 2 weeks since coming back from a seminar, I really started to focus more deeply on my values. And I've outlined them very clearly, and I understand them. And I said, okay, so what am I doing in my life that is not in alignment with what I value? And as I started to understand that, I realized I had some habits that were not supporting me. And so what I did is I changed. And I allocated blocks of time to the specific things that were my values. So now I watch about 10 minutes of TV a day. I watch my sports center because I love sports. But I get all I need from 10 minutes of Sports Center. You ever watch Sports Center? In 10 minutes, you get everything you need. You don't have to sit there and watch a game for 3 hours. You'll get it all in that 10-minute clip, and you'll get all the games. That's enough for me. I stopped my idle searching on the web. I stopped unnecessary Facebook. I stopped the idea of sitting procrastinating. And so now I put in blocks to replace that. So my day starts at 4:30 in the morning. My day ends at 9:30 at night. I am getting more done than I've ever dreamed of getting done because I've taken the power to claim what I want, determined that I will only do that what I want. I know that the power that is universal is within me, and I am claiming that, and the demonstrations are unfolding with such ease and with such grace. In 2 weeks, I've shifted the entire direction of my life because I've embodied the idea that there's one. It's God. It's infinite. I understand that it creates. And I understand that being that power of God in me, I have the power to create. And as I consciously become the person that I see having what I want, I get to experience that. You see, the thing I want to share with you now is I know this truth for me. I also know this truth for you. The idea is, and I'll always know this truth for you, but the idea is you got to want it. You have to decide, is this the truth you want? Are you willing to step forth and educate yourself? Are you willing to step forth and claim your power back? Are you willing to step forth and do those things that support and nurture you? Are you willing to step forth and not care what other people say is going on in your life, but be content and at peace with what you believe is going on in your life? Are you willing to let go of the past, which is just a teacher and brought you to the place where you are now, but has no power on you now the second you decide to let it go? You see, the only moment that exists is now. And you can choose what you bring into this now. You can choose the past. You can choose this new identity that you are. You can't bring the future into the now. The future doesn't exist. But you can fear the future, and fearing the future will paralyze you. 99.9% of what you fear about the future will never happen. So don't talk about it. Don't even think about it. Be so fully present in the now. When you're present in the now, you will be giving everything that you've got into what you believe is right for you. And when it's right for you, you are using the creative power. And when you create something magnificent now, guess what? You're vibrating. You're vibrating at a specific level. And at that level, you can only attract more of it. So your future is already assured because of what you become now. That's why you don't have to worry about the future. You become it now. And that makes you what it's all about. So I'm looking at you. Can you see me looking at you? Now hear this real clearly. You're perfect. You don't have to change anything. Everything that makes up God makes up who you are. The power that you want is already within you, and all you have to do is claim it, think it, feel it, and use it. And I guarantee you, you will create a life beyond anything you have ever dreamed. I want to thank you for joining us today. I am so grateful that you took your time to watch or listen to this message. If you found this message beneficial, I would ask you to go to our website. Once there, click on the Contribute button and experience the joy of conscious and purposeful giving. It is through your gifts that we are able to bring this message to the world. I would also ask you to please share this message with anyone you feel might benefit. Again, I want to thank you for joining me and the Agape community as together we bring joy to life.